So in this last video, we're going to cover the beginning of communication, and we'll continue this on Wednesday with social styles and communication styles. But the key concept that we're going to talk about is listening. Why? Because effective listening has been ranked in research and shown in research to be the number one skill that a salesperson should have. So what does it mean to listen? Well, this is the Chinese character for to listen. And you can see here that it's not just about what you hear. It's also about eye contact. It's about undivided attention. It's about being empathetic. So we need to keep in mind that listening really goes beyond just what we're hearing. This is the definition of salesperson listening. And then I am going to talk to you about these particular underlined parts in red. Okay, so salesperson listening. So this is, as the slide says, a complex process that is both cognitive, so in your brain, as well as behavioral, so actions. And there are three dimensions that need to occur in progression, so sequentially, in order for listening to be effective. So first, you're going to start with sensing. And so you're going to take in messages or cues, and those will be verbal and or nonverbal. Once you take in those messages or cues, then you're going to evaluate them in your brain. And so when you're evaluating these messages, you're going to assign meaning to them. You're also going to do something called norming. And so norming is that since you were a little kid, you've had experiences. So your brain assigns, when you have experiences over and over, what's normal for a particular situation. So as you're evaluating, you are thinking, or your brain's processing, what is normal for this situation, and how does that compare with the messages or cues I've received? If it's not normal for the situation, then what's going on? And that may lead you in responding. So when after you've evaluated, you respond to the situation verbally or non-verbally, or to the messages. When you respond to say, okay, maybe I need to ask this person another question, or maybe when you're evaluating, there's a mismatch between what they're saying and their body language, and figure out, why is there a mismatch? Maybe they're slumped in their chair and they're not making eye contact and their arms are crossed, which would tell me they're disinterested, but verbally they're saying they are. So when you respond, you may need to figure out what the difference is between those two, messages you're receiving, the verbal and the nonverbal. But again, these have to occur in order for effective listening to occur. So that means that you don't just hear what the person says and respond. You need to take the time, you need to take a second and evaluate and really understand the situation. And this happens very quickly, but sometimes we'll just have to have ourselves or think about, okay, I need to slow down for just a few seconds and really think about this before I respond. So you can go through these. This is what I just went through. And then let's talk about nonverbal communication. So here's an example of nonverbal communication. Essentially, I know and you know from looking at this picture that this guy is bored or disinterested. How do we know that? He's yawning, his arms on the table, head in the hand. So we know that from his body language. So nonverbal communication comprises over 90% of our communication. And you can read about these two processes. The information process is what taking in those messages and assigning meaning to interpret what someone is communicating. The impression management is what we're going to do as salespeople, and that's being conscious of our body language, our nonverbal communication to send the right message to our customers. And how do you work on that? We're going to do that through our role plays. We will work on this impression management, and I will help you by giving you feedback specifically, like make more eye contact, don't slouch, whatever it may be. Even when it's virtual, I can tell a lot of what you're doing. So we'll work on that as well. Examples of nonverbal communication, you can read through this. The one that I'll point out, paralinguistics. So paralinguistics is going to be, you can see how we speak, but specifically that's the words you choose, that's your rate of speech, that's inflection, pauses, all of those kind of things would be paralinguistics. How you show your emotions. So I've got two picture examples of this. We can tell from both of these situations what the emotion is. I see frustration, anger, maybe here. Engaged in the conversation, looks happy there. Other thing to note is dress. So again, in this example, looking at these two salespeople, who would you buy from? I'd buy from the person on the right. Why would I buy from them instead of the person on the left? Well, because I'm interpreting from looking at the two of them that maybe the person on the right's going to be more responsible, have things more put together, where the person on the left looks like they're sloppy, they're probably lazy, maybe they're not going to really care or devote much time to me. And I'm reading all of that into it just by the way they're dressed, and not dressed in terms of the clothing, because this guy on the left could, if his clothing was ironed and on straight and his hair was fixed, then they would be equal probably in my eyes. Like a suit jacket doesn't indicate to me that you're a better salesperson, but it's the appearance of the dress that matters. So regardless of what you're wearing, it's the appearance of it, and how you look overall will influence how people view you. Lastly, how do we practice good listening? So read through these. Withhold judgment. What is meant by that is not jumping into conclusions, not interrupting a person, and waiting for them to speak, maybe asking some questions to get clarification before you jump to a conclusion. Be patient with the speaker. Let someone talk. Don't interrupt. Other techniques you can practice: nodding your head, moving your body or your head towards the person speaking. So if you're in a large group, that's definitely turning your head towards whoever's speaking. Using some encouraging words or phrases. Taking notes is a great thing. Paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is particularly important to make sure that the way you understood what your customer or prospect said is the way they intended it. So you can always say things like, okay, so what I heard from what you're saying is XYZ. Is that correct? If they say, no, what I meant was this, that's great, because then you don't assume something and are wrong. All right, and again, we will work on these in our role plays. I will give you notes, good job doing this, you need to do this more. And as we do each role play, you'll continue to improve, and I'll continue to give you feedback. But that is it for today.